Okay, so today, 14 days to rise and shine, and that makes today day 8. Day 8 is face. Face is multifaceted, multi-faced, like we are, right? We are multifaceted, multi-purposed beings, multi-dimensional. All right, so I'm going to break this down, but FACE is a working acronym, and it's an acronym that, like this, works like a build. Okay, so we're building up our road connected to this vehicle, consciousness activated, vehicle player active participant in our perception. Teacher and student are in harmony in our conscious classroom. Okay, so 14 days to rise and shine, day 8, face works just like that build. Okay, so one brick of belief at a time. This kind of works like a build. And what I mean by this, here's kind of a good way to put it. It's like FACE is an acronym, all right, that stands for this. It stands for forgive, appreciate. C is 2-part. It's confirm/correct. E is expand. And these work as a build. So the build, I want to kind of illuminate it with this illustrator, all right? Face, F kind of starts out here, and then A, C, E. Okay, that's how the build works. We get closer and closer and closer to our own true reflection, where we face ourself, we face our potential, we face our truth, okay? And so this is a process, because we can't just look ourselves in the face. If we could, we would all be already, perhaps, I don't know, building faster. I don't know. We struggle with this, and we have to unite in our struggle here, because we struggle facing the truth. We struggle facing ourselves. We struggle ultimately facing our potential, because we've got so much shame built up. There's so many shame bullies in that classroom of ours. There's so much noise coming in through the intercom that we can't hear ourselves reminding ourselves who we truly are. And so we kind of even scared to face our own potential. It's hard to look at, right? Because it also confronts us then with what we're not essentially aspiring to or working toward or building up our belief that we can. We've kind of settled into this perceptual pit. But all right, before I get too far off into Never Never Land, let's talk about FACE. There are 2 things I want to talk about. 1, I'm going to kind of break down this acronym. 2, I want to talk about when you do face yourself, we're switching codes, okay? So I've talked a lot about this primary code, this instinctive code. That is where our internal intercom and therefore its volume dial is located. We might call this our moral compass, our source, that part of us, that piece of us that plugs us into the whole of us, all right? So to the all of us, okay. So when I talk about these codes, I'm talking about this conversation that we have going on within. In communication, this is called intrapersonal communication, intra, kind of that within, from that Latin root. So communicating within, we all have this self-talk, this self-dialogue. And it is a dialogue, but when it's kind of only the human side of us on both sides of that conversation, we get into these perceptual pits. So we have to stay anchored to the source of us, to the source of our truth that says, at the source of me, there is a conversational participant waiting for me to join the conversation. Okay, and so that internal dialogue we want to call a restricted code, because only you have access to that frequency, to that internal dialogue going on within, to your ability to hear yourself, your ability to access your conscious classroom is only yours. And so we call this a restricted code of communication. And this is in contrast to this kind of public communication that we give, what we call an elaborated code. And it's elaborated because in the restricted code, we really don't even need words. We actually access it most authentically without words. We access it by getting quiet, by being still, by being intentionally still, by falling into the sounds around you, by escaping those sounds and allowing thoughts to just kind of pass through. This is this restricted code that goes on, that flows from within, and from it come ideas, from it come inspiration, from it come memories, and those memories are coming up for you to process, for you to chew on. And so that is a restricted code. That's a conversation coming up from within that requires you to be quiet, to be still, to be actively still and situated intentionally in that stillness. Being human is why we're here. So when we understand the why, we start to participate in the how. And so this is how we get quiet and we access that restricted code. And it's great because the more you nurture this conversation, it's a conversation and you've got to keep the conversation going. All right, that's up to you. So you've got to keep finding time to check in, to go have your, go step into the classroom and have your meeting. And it requires you to shut the noise off around you, to turn it down. We can't really shut it off, so we turn it down and we make internal intercom loudest. We make it primary, and we be still there. And from it, our restricted code emerges and we access it. And the more we nurture this conversation, the more we plug into it in every single interaction. And so in every single interaction, you're always having a first conversation, and then you're deciding how you're really going to communicate that. You're going to elaborate on what you've received from the stream, and you're going to use your human expression to put out that message however you choose to. But when we add mindfulness, when we add that conscious access, that active participation here in our perceptual process, what we do is we access our choice, our deciding power. And every time we're doing that, we are restoring it. Okay, so in a conversation, let's say someone is saying something that you don't agree with. You don't have to outwardly disagree because you have a conversation within first. In that restricted code, you can have inside jokes between you, and you can make a note of that. You can make a joke of it in the moment. You could paint a whole improv scene in your mind and just eye contact, nodding, right? Head tilt, You can throw an in there. You can be a respectful, grace-filled truth giver, all right? We want to be as truthful as we are graceful. What's the word? There's another word I want to find there. It's like I've got to give you the truth, but I've got to give it to you in a way that you enjoy the seat at this table. If we call truth the table, I want you to feel like, come on back. And so I think we do that. We treat truth a certain way when we approach it that way. Okay, so it's good to have good manners. Yes. All right. We call that grace, I suppose. All right. So anyway, this restricted code allows you grace. And so in a conversation, you can certainly participate, but you're still actively participating up here, and you're having a conversation within, and then you're deciding how you want to respond. And so this is really putting you first. And when you put you first, you are playing as a secure player in this experience, and that's serving the whole of the experience. So serving the whole of you is checking in with your restricted code, your conversation within. You got to check in the classroom first, check in home. We might call the classroom home in this moment. You know what, I gotta check in at home before I respond to this out in front of me. Let me go home and see what I would think at home, and then let me respond here. And so we start just kind of becoming aware of this, aware of the fact that there is a conversation within, that when we add mindfulness, when we add active participation to that perceptual process, we start to really access our highest self and our opportunity to communicate with them. We start to exchange in the conversation they've been waiting for us to meet them in. All right, so FACE as this kind of acronym. So the codes of communication, something to work with, something to pay attention to. And that's kind of what's going to lead to this guided facing yourself, because we want to face ourselves with grace, just like I've been talking about. When we face ourselves, we are facing our truth. We're facing the truth of us and all the truths that are real and in front of us. And likewise, we need to do that with grace. So FACE is an acronym as so. All right, so forgive, appreciate, correct / confirm, expand. And I'm going to break this down, but for now, we're just going to become mindful of facing our truth. It's going to require some grace. And so let's just start by getting in touch with that conversation. Let's start just kind of stretching our perception to believe and identify that there is a conversational participant waiting in our conscious classroom for us to join in our perceptual participation. Yes. 14 days to rise and shine. Day 8, FACE. I'm going to spend the day breaking down this acronym.